Hello, everybody. I'm Josef Haas. I work full-time in EMS. I'm also a volunteer firefighter and a volunteer EMT with my local ambulance squad. And I'm also in the National Guard as a military police officer. So my plate's kind of full, but what we're really here to talk about is EMS as a whole and how it's kind of not recognized as the profession that it is. How it's not getting the I don't want to say dedication, but the acknowledgement that it deserves. So I've been involved in EMS for the past 5 years. I've been getting paid for the past 2 years. Got my EMT 2 years ago, right before I left for basic training for the National Guard. And ever since I've been back, I've been working with the company that I am working for now.
That is awesome. So what really got you into being into the service?
So my great-grandfather actually, ever since he came off the boat from Germany, he's been involved in the fire department. He was one of the founding members of my local fire department, and every family member since has been involved. My grandfather was a chief, my father was a chief, my brother was a chief, my other brother got up to captain, and now I'm the first lieutenant in my fire department. So I've been involved in the fire department ever since I could basically walk. I was right in the baby carriage in the firehouse, helping at events, doing whatever I could. So that really intrigued me into the first responder side, and it opened up my eyes to a wide variety of things.
That is awesome. You must have went up and down that pole, or probably down the pole.
No, unfortunately, our fire station doesn't have one of those infamous poles. We have stairs, so we get, fit running up and down the stairs.
There you go. So I know we talked about you being an EMS, but I want to somewhat touch base on being a firefighter, and that, if that's okay with you, is that I see the equipment that the firefighters have to wear. And like you mentioned, going up and down the stairs is great exercise, but that equipment alone weighs probably 50, 60 pounds, just like the suit. And then you put an oxygen tank on, a helmet, and carrying the hose and all this other stuff. That you have to have the strength and muscles and really the stamina to do all that.
Exactly. So our turnout gear alone weighs 40 pounds. So your jacket and your pants and your boots, that weighs 40 pounds alone. Then you throw an air pack on top of that. I mean, they've gotten lighter over the years. I think they're about 28 pounds now. Throw that on top, and then your helmet, which is another 8 pounds. That's just your basic gear that you're using to go inside a fire. Then, of course, you throw in your hose, your axe, your Halligan bar, which is that metal bar that we use. It's all extra weight. So yes, you do have to stay in fit. And one of the biggest issues in the fire service today is people not being fit. And it causes them to have unhealthy diets. And then when they're on a fire scene, it causes them to crash, unfortunately.
I'm pretty sure that, yeah, you're absolutely right on that one. You really have to be fit, and you have to not just be fit at the time of taking the test, but continue to be fit, because every second counts, especially being a firefighter. When you run into a burning building, for example, it could be even a car itself, carrying all that weight on you. You have to have good cardio, good stamina, understand the risk that you're taking as well. And you're really overwhelmed because all this information is being processed towards you, and you have to make that right decision at that split time.
Exactly.
So talking about the EMS, in which you're somewhat geared towards, what is that, and how does that involve on your day-to-day?
So EMS, I got involved with EMS about 5 or 6 years ago. One of my very close family friends, he was involved in the local ambulance corps. And he's like, Joseph, I really want you to come over and get involved. And I'm like, I really don't know if that's something I want. I don't like puke. I don't like blood. That stuff kind of grosses me out. I'm like, I don't think I can do that. He's like, just ride in on one call and see if you like it. So I'm like, okay, why not? So I rode in with one call on him, and that got me hooked right there. I'm like, I want to help people. I want to be part of something bigger. So then I joined the local ambulance corps as a driver. Well, first an attendant. So I'd be in the back helping the EMT, giving him whatever he needed, and getting exposed to all these calls and different people and what to do and how to treat patients. I'm like, I really want to do this for like a profession. So I moved up the rank to driver. So then I was driving the ambulance, learned how to drive with someone in the back, so you're not throwing them around. And then they paid for me to go to EMT school. So I went to EMT school. I learned tons of information. My instructor is a Harvard grad. He has like 5 or 6 different degrees, extremely smart man. He taught me the ways of how to be a good EMT. So I learned the textbook stuff. Then I had to actually apply it to being in the field. So I came back to my volunteer agency. My first call was a nightmare. I think it was someone with a broken ankle, if I remember correctly. And I was freaking out because I'm like, I don't know if I'm going to do this right. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm like, I'm not really an EMT. But then I sat myself back down. I thought, you're trained for this. You know what to do. So I went back to my training and I treated the patient. It was awkward conversation between me and them. I'm like, hello, I'm Joseph. I'm your EMT. Very, very monotone, like weird. But as time went on, I got better with the progression of how to treat somebody. And then I left for basic training for 7 months and my training for my military police job, came back, got a job with where I am now. And now I treat patients, 5 or 6 patients a day. And I can talk to somebody and try and make them feel better. I mean, I try to do my best.
That is awesome. You mentioned something that's very key, and that is talking, or i.e. communication. How important is that, especially in your profession?
Talking is key, not only between you and your patient, but you and your partner as well. Communication is the biggest thing. Communication is how we let someone know, I'm in pain, I'm not feeling well. So I try and talk to my patient and calm them down and tell them, I'm here for you. Let me know what's going on so I can help you. And it can be as simple as just talking to someone if they're having a bad day and it can make them feel better. Or if you have somebody who's in agonizing pain, just talking them through it. You can't really do anything because of that pain, but talking makes it ever so better. And then talking between your partner, communicating. Let's do this different. Let's do this. Talking after a call. That's the biggest thing. I always talk with my partner after a call. What can we do different on that? What can we do better? How can we do this better?
You're absolutely right on that one. That post, I guess, call is the biggest thing, because you might go in there saying, okay, you're focused on doing this, and then your partner might be doing something else. But then all through that, you might have a miscommunication. It's really good to recall those moments and say, hey, let's refocus. Let's, next call that happens, let's try and work on this one, better communication. Let's get, for example, we noticed that the emergency bag, for example, was a little bit too far or something like that, like too far in the back of the truck. Maybe we should move it closer to the door. Therefore, when we go out to the call, it makes it easier, and so on and so forth. As you mentioned, like that post conversation is really important, especially in your profession.
Exactly.
If you don't mind me asking, so what's a typical day for you?
So a typical day, we're going to go from the minute I get up. I usually wake up, depending on the day. I'll make myself a cup of coffee, get ready, take a shower, take the cup of coffee, go out to my car, drive to work, clock in, check the truck, talk to my partner, help them check their gear if we need to check the gear. And then we usually wait around for the first call, first transport, whatever, do our first call, do our first transport, come back to the station, or maybe we get sent on another call, do our calls, go to the hospital, do what we need to do there, restock, come back, wash the truck for the end of the day, clock out and leave. Then I come back. Usually I have some homework to do for paramedic school because I'm also in paramedic school. Or I have fire classes to do, or I spend my spare time TikToking, if you may not know that. And that's a normal day for me.
So not too crazy though.
Not too crazy. I mean, that was kind of the brief overview. There's in a span of that 6 or 7 calls, but that's awesome. That's the basic day view.
You mentioned calls. If you don't mind me asking, want to describe like the worst call you've ever had, or
the worst call I've ever had,
or a call that you wish you could have like done better?
Call I wish I could have done better. It'd probably be a call where we had this asthmatic patient and I was a newer EMT. I really didn't know what to do. And again, this is why I talk to my partners. I talk to the people that I'm with. The patient was having an asthma attack and I really didn't know what to do for them. So I just gave them oxygen and didn't do anything else. When in reality, I could have gave them different medications that could have helped them. and I could have actually eased their breathing. They were fine in the end, thank goodness. But after that, I talked to my partners and I'm like, what could have I done different? And they're like, well, here's what we would have done. Here's what we could have done. And this is what you should have done. I'm like, okay. But again, that's why communication is key, especially in this profession. That's probably one call where I wish I could have done something different.
You always have those learning experiences, and like you mentioned, it ended well.
Mhm.
Pretty sure you've seen, unfortunately, like fatalities in the line of work.
Mhm.
And you kind of just be like, well, you did the biggest thing is you have to know that you did the best you can at all things. And like you mentioned, it's that communication piece. It's going over it with experienced veterans and understanding, like you mentioned, it's that communication, talking to the patient, talking to this person. Hey, like I know we're rammed. What can we do to your biggest thing is just saving a life, really.
Exactly. And you just brought something up about seeing rough calls and dealing with fatalities. Unfortunately, it's part of the job. It's in the job description. You're going to see it and you're going to deal with it. Now, it's how you deal with it is that key part. I talk with people about it. I don't bottle that stuff up. I know that there's a lot of older EMTs and a lot of older EMS folk out there. They're like, oh, bottle that stuff up and just put it away in a corner somewhere. I'm part of the new generation. I don't do that. I talk things through because when you bottle things up like that, it just builds up and eventually you're going to burst, and you can either burst by and explode on someone or burst in not a good way. So I always talk about every difficult call that I have. I talk it through with my partners. If I need to, I'll go to a debriefing about it and we'll talk it through so that stress doesn't build up on me.
I love that you mentioned that, and that was one of my points. It's the fact that I think there's an undercover layer or an overcover layer, however you want to look
Mhm.
at it, in which people in your profession, when they go through a rough call or a rough time, whatever, they're taught to just cover it up and
Mhm.
follow it. And I think that's leading to a lot of mental health issues. And I'm glad that you're going through those debriefing. I'm glad that you're talking about it. And it's funny how you mentioned the new generation.
Mhm.
Um, I think it's just something that people just need to just really start doing, because especially with a pandemic hitting, you go from, for example, I remember seeing someone and listening to the news. There's people that are not even going home after their shift because they're just they're dedicated to their job. They go to the station, take a quick nap, go back on the road because they want to help. All that is mental health. All that is stress. And then when you finally have that day to relax and go home to a family or just to de-stress, you can't. You fall asleep, you wake up and you sleep for a good 16, 20 hours, for example. You feel somewhat rested, but you're back into the thick of it.
Exactly. And resting and taking time for yourself is another key part of it. I know when there's a point in my career here, I mean, I'm somewhat new to the field, but there's a point in my career where I got burnt out and I needed time off. I worked a night shift for a while and that just wreaked havoc on me. I'm a guy who likes to be up during the day and my body can't sleep during the day. So I would work a 12-hour night shift. I would work a 24-hour shift and I would come home and I would try and sleep, but I couldn't. And eventually it would culminate and I would just crash and burn out. So that's a very big key part is resting yourself.
Mm-hmm. I'm glad you took note on that as well. So any advice for anyone that's up and coming that wants to look into this field?
So advice for someone to come up. Don't come in for the money. That's one thing. EMS is very underpaid, but I don't do it for the money. I do it because I care about people. I care about giving people great care. I care about others out there. I want to help people to the best of my ability. That's why I'm going to paramedic school, to further my career, to further my knowledge, so I can help people even more. Don't do it for the fame or the glory. There's a lot of people who want to be superheroes out there, track stars, whatever they want to be. They want to be the top. They want to be the focus of all the cameras and all the attention. Don't be that person here, because it's not going to get you anywhere. It's only going to hurt you in the end. So say that you want to be that superhero and run to a burning building before the fire department gets there and try and save someone. Just wait. They'll be there in 2 minutes. They'll get them out. Don't be a superhero, because eventually being a superhero is going to end up hurting you in the end.
Tough.
Um,
I love it. Sorry, continue.
Another piece of advice, take your training seriously, because what you're going to learn in class will directly apply to what you're going to do in the field. It may not be textbook, but still it's going to be in the back of your mind. I had a call the other day where this patient was having an episode of some sort. And I'm like, they're having this exact episode. I'm like, I just learned that in school. And I looked at my partner, I said that, and they're like, you know what? That's good. And I treated the patient for how they were presenting because of that. And it just, you fall back on your training and you build off of it as well. That training is your base layer, and it's like a pyramid after that. And you build to the pinnacle to be the best you possibly can, but never stop learning. If you find someone who says that they know everything in this field or in the firefighting field, get away from them. They're going to hurt you. They're going to get you into a lawsuit. They're going to kill you in the end, because that person does not care anymore. I learn every day I come into work, and I love it. I would not trade that for the world.
You mentioned a key word that I didn't think about, and that was lawsuit. Do you guys get sued for treating patients?
So we're covered under a lot of things. But yes, unfortunately, lawsuits do occur. If we have malpractice laws and neglect laws in our field, so we try and treat patients the best that we can, but we don't go too far. So we have something called a scope of practice. So your scope of practice is what you're allowed to do within your own field. So an EMT scope of practice is much smaller than a paramedic scope of practice. And a paramedic scope of practice doesn't go out to a nurse or to a doctor. So it's all about your scope of practice and making sure you know what's within your scope of practice, so you don't get yourself into hot water and do something you're not supposed to be doing.
I love that. That's something I never knew. Again, we watch all these TV shows, and it's way out there, and they make this job seem so very glamorous at times. And I think, and I'm pretty sure, like, being really in that profession and seeing it, you're like, it's for the entertainment.
Exactly. It's anything you see on Chicago Med or Chicago Fire, don't believe it. It's not real. It's not true. I mean, you'd like to imagine, like, oh yeah, that's how every fire call is going to be. I'm just going to come back, take a shower, and I'll be okay. Now, unfortunately, that's not the reality of it. You might be running a call, you don't even have a chance to clean up after that last call, and you're on another one.
Oh wow.
You don't see the underlying things that those crew members are dealing with, unfortunately. But that's why I'm here to talk about it.
I love that. I love this. One thing I gotta say, and this is again the what we see on TV. We always see I guess people in the EMS and people in the police force and being firefighters, they're like, there's just like rivalry between all three of them for some strange reason. Yeah. Is that true?
Oh boy. So we have our friendly rivalries. It's not bitter. It's not like this blood war, like, oh, we're bitter enemies. No, we work very, very closely with the police and fire department every day. And in reality, the cops are our best friends. They have our back. If something goes south, they'll be there right for us. If a scene is not really that safe, they'll be there before we even get there. So you have to make friends with your police officers and your firefighters, because in the end, they're going to have your back. Your firefighters are going to be the ones who are carrying out the patient for you, who are carrying your bags, who are doing CPR for you, who are doing things that you can't do because you're treating the patient in other forms. So they're going to be your best friend there. I mean, yeah, we have our little goofy things that we do, like, ha, 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 you're just a bag carrier. Ha, 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 you're just a CPR machine, like that. But in the end, they're really our best friends, and we'll be there for them and they'll be there for us.
That's awesome. You mentioned something, and when you talk, I'm getting images in my mind, which is fantastic. What's the biggest gripe going to a call? Because I've always, and I say this because anytime I see an ambulance going through traffic and the person in front of them drives like driving Miss Daisy, that must freak you guys out, and you just want to like give them a shake.
So the biggest gripe going to a call, I mean, traffic is unfortunate. It is one of those things that gets to you, but we're taught when we drive these vehicles, these are big billboards for our company. These are big billboards. These lights and sirens draw attention, and they draw attention of lawyers too. So say that you get into an accident, more than likely it's your fault, unfortunately. So we have to drive with something called due regard. Yes, we have lights and sirens on. Yes, we're going to an emergency, but we can't be going balls to the wall, hell's all going 90 miles an hour down a 30-mile-an-hour street and granny's walking down the sidewalk. We can't do that. So we have to drive with due regard. We have to drive respectfully with what the road conditions are, the speed limit. Yeah, we can go a little faster. Yeah, we can go through red lights, but we also have to stop at those red lights, make sure it's good, and then we can go. We have to be so defensive driving those ambulances. It's crazy. So we have to take extra care. And yes, you get that slow person in front of you. It can be aggravating, but eventually they might notice you, or you get to a safer section of the road where you can go by them, but just don't get angry about it. I mean, yes, it's very easy to fall into that, like, what are you doing? Get out of my way. But just calm down. It'll be okay. In reality, you do get there a little bit quicker with lights and sirens, but you're not going to get there too much faster, blowing granny off the road.
Thanks for that, Joseph.
You're welcome.
Any advice you'd like to say to anyone out there? Yeah.
Any advice to anyone out there? Just if you're looking to get into this field, do your research, look to where you want to. Say you have a volunteer ambulance in your town or a volunteer fire department in your town, go in them, ask questions, be like, hey, I'm interested in joining. What can I do? How can I help out? And they will help you. They will talk to you. If you're looking to get into EMS as a career, look to the agencies around you. Talk to the paid agencies. Hey, what can I do to come join you? What do you guys look for? What is your company like? And then work towards that, and then work towards your goals to eventually get there. That's one piece of advice that I would have.
That is awesome. Thank you so much. Sorry,
Welcome.
I really should touch base on pandemic stuff.
Oh,
but
yes.
I'm kind of sick and tired of it, to be honest with you.
I know.
Or even like the convoy, because I've seen certain things. I don't know where you are located really, in which I've seen they mentioned that with the convoy that happened, that it was hard for the EMS to go and to find what's it called, to provide service with people. Again, COVID that's happening. You most likely saw a spike of the calls. I guess, did your certain protocols change when the pandemic started, or in the mid?
Yes. So our protocols did change. I'm located up in New York. So New York's a very interesting place for EMS. Our protocols did change when the pandemic first started. We couldn't do certain treatments. We couldn't do certain things to patients if they were presenting in a certain way. We still treated the patient. We just couldn't do certain things. But that's kind of evolved back to the way it was before the pandemic, because the pandemic's dying down. But the biggest part of the pandemic was the unknown. Every patient that you went to, you didn't know if they had it. You didn't know if they had COVID. You didn't know what was going on. You had to treat every patient as if they had it, unfortunately. And it caused a lot of people to be worn down, as you could probably tell from the news, of people not even going home to see their families. They're staying out in tents. They would take off their clothes before they even get into their house and spray themselves off with a garden hose because they were afraid of bringing it into their homes. And it was just that fear of the unknown. That was the biggest part.